Hi everyone and welcome to this episode of Keipert Labs. In today's video we're going to be discussing how our body responds to the environment, that is, looking at the senses that you have. So thinking about you as an organism, a complex multicellular organism, in the end, biologically speaking, your main goal is survival. So much of how your body is designed and set up and allowed to function is so that in the end you don't die. Okay, now clearly, as thinking about humanity, that's not exactly the most noble goal. Just stay alive as long as you can. But biologically speaking, that's what your body is designed to do, and lots of things are set up that way to maximize your chance of surviving from one day, from 1 minute to the next, and then beyond that, then thinking about actually trying to thrive. So thinking about how you can stay healthy and well and functional, as opposed to just technically not dead. Okay. And so thinking about this need for survival, biologically speaking, that there's a couple of different things that, as far as your body is concerned, that would factor into helping you survive. Okay, the first one is this idea of having your needs met. So thinking about what your body needs to survive and developing ways to make sure those needs get met. Okay, so that might be nutrients. Okay, so it might be water. So nutrients, then that might kind of think about food, whether it's carbohydrates and proteins, fats, all those sorts of things. You need for water, so need for oxygen, okay, need for warmth, etc. Okay, so they're all a range of different needs that you have. And then they can drill down a bit more specifically into some really kind of micro level kind of needs, so what types of nutrients do you need and how much do you need and what is it there for, and all that sort of business. We also, in order for survival, you have the need for protection. So protection from outside threats that are big, a way to protect you from a bear that might be chasing you. Protection also at the micro level. Protection in terms of any, like pathogens or viruses, bacteria, microorganisms that seek to do you harm, to having systems in place to protect you from that. Then we also think about responding to our environment. And we'll come back to that in a second, because I've just realized that there's another need that we haven't actually talked about here, which we won't kind of go into a lot of detail here, because we'll cover that in future videos. But the idea of, for us, not only as an individual organism, but as part of a species, we have that need for survival of the species, where we're thinking about, if I can spell properly, reproduction. Okay, this idea of that in order for you to survive, for us as humanity to survive, we need a way in order to, we can make more humans. Okay, and in essence. But today we're going to be focusing on this idea of how does our body know how to respond to our environment in order to then be able to keep us safe and well and healthy. Okay, so that's where we're going to focus. So when we're thinking about for something to be living, just as a quick digression, there are 7 kind of main characteristics that we would be considering. Something that moves, so it has to have some way to move through its environment. It respires, so that way, some way of getting oxygen. Senses, which is what we're going to focus on today. It can grow and change over its lifespan. It can reproduce. So it grows, it reproduces, it excretes. So clearly it's a bit late at night. It excretes, has a way of getting rid of wastes and things that it doesn't need, and nutrients. It has a way to access nutrients that it needs. Okay, so all living things will tick these boxes in some form, whether it looks like the same as it does for us or not. So tree movement looks different to our movement, but recognizing that it is something that does actually happen. If you've ever seen kind of time-lapse photography in the jungle on a David Attenborough documentary, you can recognize there is movement there. It's just on a slower time scale than we're used to. Anyway, so we're going to focus on this one, about this idea of how a living thing like us is able to actually to find out about our environment. Okay, so when we're thinking about our senses, we're thinking ways to process information from our environment. Okay, and so where we are responding to a stimulus. Okay, we're going to think as we look at the nervous system. We're going to focus on what we mean a bit more specifically about stimulus. But this idea being that it's something, a piece of information, a bit of data that we are encountering in some way that then our body is responding to. Okay, so now these senses that we use can be internal or external, or thinking about our internal environment or the external environment. Now, if you asked Joe Bloggs on the street how many senses that we have, he or she would probably say 5, because that's what we tend to believe, that there are 5 main senses that your sight, hearing, touch, smell, and taste. Okay, but the reality is that biologically speaking, you have many more senses than that. You just haven't realized or called them that before. And so those senses, so when we're thinking about things that relate to our external environment, that's where we're thinking about some of those senses, being able to see things, being so sight, hearing, touch, smell, and taste. Now, they're not the only ones, but that's kind of where we would put those ones. But they're all about things that are outside of our body that we are becoming aware of, things that we can see, sounds that we can hear, or detecting sound. So being able to pick up objects, or being able to sense the physical proximity of an object, being able to take in certain kind of chemical markers that then trigger a smell response, or same sort of thing with taste on our tongue. They're all things about our external environment. We also so we can also sense heat. So that idea of we have have specialized cells that are able to pick up, if we hold our hand near something hot, that we can pick up that infrared radiation. We also that's kind of there are a few other ones that just escape me at the moment. We'll come back to them if I think of them. Okay, and then we also have senses that tell us about our internal environment. Okay, so what's happening inside our body that we need to process? Okay, so some of our senses, we have our sense of hunger. We have our sense of thirst. Okay, both identifying particular needs that we have in terms of nutrients, in terms of the food that we eat, and in terms of water that our body needs as well. We have another sense in terms of pain. So being able to actually sense when something is wrong. Now, this could equally go over here as well, because depending on exactly what the stimulus is that is causing us pain, is it some internal damage to blood vessels, or like a bruise or something that has happened internally, or is it some sort of damage there, or are we responding to a wound of some sort, something that is stabbing us, something that is that has penetrated otherwise the defenses of our body. Okay, so pain is one that's over here. We also have a sense of balance. Okay, so that being able to actually tell when you are upside down or when you are sideways, that you have a sense that even when your eyes are closed, that you do know whether you are upright or not. Depending on your environment, that might get confused. If you get dumped by a wave at the beach, that can be something that can be, you get that panic and that initial sense that you don't know which way is up. But after a moment, that you kind of get a clear head, and then you can actually you can respond appropriately to try and work your way to be upright again. And so that also, telling when you are upright. It's the sort of sense that gets put out of whack if you spin yourself around all the time, or you get really dizzy, or sometimes if you have inner ear problems or middle ear problems that throw out your balance, or you get a perforated eardrum or something like that. Sometimes this can happen where your sense of balance gets distorted. Okay, so here's just kind of a range of different senses that we have, and there's other things that undoubtedly we can add to the list here. So at the moment, I think this is a fairly kind of reasonable list that then we can build on as we come across new things. But so there are ways that our body is able to respond to our environment based on particular data or particular information that we're picking up, whether it's external, so thinking about our so kind of responding to what's outside of our body, or responding to things that are happening inside of our body. Okay, thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.